When did you get into flying, testing and playing around with the water-based version of the C-130? What's the story
Well,
on that?
first place, that wasn't an airplane. That was an RC model only.
I know, right, but
But there was a program. The Navy wrote Lockheed a contract to test a model of the C-130 with a built-on what we call a scab body on the bottom, where they had the float plane shape, and see if it would work. They were concerned over what they call the rooster tail off a seaplane. When you pick up speed, the rooster tail is the keel where it hits the water at last, and right there a little splash comes up. And they were worried about that rooster tail was going to come up and hit the tail. Well, C-130 was a natural for that because it had such a high tail anyhow, and it wasn't any problem. But that was one of the things we were supposed to test. The other thing was that they wanted to make it not just a seaplane, but a seaplane that would handle sea state 7, I believe. I can't remember the numbers now.
Okay.
The roughness of the sea is measured by sea state 1, 2, getting rougher and rougher as you get up. And so no seaplane at that time had ever been certified to more than sea state 3. And they wanted to make a C-130 handle a sea state 7, I believe it was. May have been another number, but I think that was it. And to do that, Lockheed's method was to put a ski on it. It had a retractable ski that fit into the bottom of the hull, and had a long pylon up in there to run down and extend it down 10 or I've forgotten what the real airplane would do, but we had the model extend down what looked like about 10 or 12 feet proportionally, and land and take off on that. And you had to put it down, taxi the airplane up to 45 knots, and then extend the ski, and the ski had enough lift to lift the hull of the airplane out of the water, and you'd only be on the ski. And the roughness of the ocean would not impinge on the ski structure like it would on the hull. The hull, that's why low CH3 was all, because any faster than that would tear up the hulls. So if you get the hull out of the water, then you can go and presumably land on it, and then when you slow down a little bit, let the hull down.
I wonder why they went with a ski instead of a hydrofoil.
They tried out hydrofoils. I don't know the reasons, but they tried.
So the ski, was it supported on in two places?
No,
Just one place?
just one pylon down the middle, and a ski, pretty broad ski turned up front and everything.
Must have been a pretty hefty joint there to keep
Must have
that
been.
thing from bending.
Well, they didn't have a real airplane here again. That's just a plan.
Yeah.
But the model.
But the
wasn't
real
from-
engineers wrote it up, didn't they?
Yeah,
wasn't it really model? It was
not
really
structure. They never got around to structure on it.
Oh, okay.
But the model, my friend Lynn Purdy made the model, structure and all.
Well, tell me about the model. What did it have for engines, and what was a wingspan and stuff?
I think the wingspan, it was a quarter scale. I can tell you that. I can't remember what it was. 9 feet something. I don't know.
Okay.
Something like that. It was a pretty big model, and had 4 model engines. And the big problem we had right from the beginning was Lockheed Engineering was watching the model just like a real airplane, and they had to have all the standard proportions and numbers of a real airplane to say we're getting an honest test or something like that. And one of the things was thrust. And we cranked those model airplane engines up, and they had 10 times the thrust that the real airplane would have. So we had to choke them down. We started using smaller propellers and flatter pitch, and finally ended up having to mix our own fuel and try to tone the thing down. And finally, back in those days, the models weren't any mufflers. We had to build mufflers for it and all that, and get the thrust down. Then we had to go out when we flew that thing every day. We had to put it all together on the edge of this lake and crank it up and take a spring fish scale, tie it with each engine, and run the engine up to full throttle and see what it measured in thrust. Had a lot of little things like that to go through. But anyhow, we finally got it flying, did all the tests, and pretty well showed them the rooster tail was okay and the ski was okay. So that was a good program, but Navy didn't buy it. They can't.
Where were we? I forgot.
Oh, we're just talking about the C-130 model. I don't think there's much else to say about that.
What was the program? Do you remember? I've got the book on it. What was the name of that? That program had a name.
How? H-O-W. Hercules on water.
Right. And there was one part, I don't know if you want to put this on video or not, but that you kind of were arguing with the engineers about what the skis should
Yeah,
be do.
I don't want to put that.
Okay, all right. Well, I guess we're ready to talk about the next big deal, which was probably the C-5 Galaxy. Huh?
Probably the what?
Oh, first, tell me how you like flying how did the Hercules fly? What was it? Strong points, weak points. What did you dislike or like about it?
I don't think of anything to not like about it. I said I liked the B-47 mighty well earlier, but I've been asked a lot of time if I was a corporate executive and could have an airplane of my own, what would I have? The answer would be C-130, because that's the only airplane that I can put the back ramp down and drive my own car out and go to the business and go back and drive up in the airplane and go on about my flying business. It's such a great airplane. The C-130 has tremendous range and weight carrying ability. It has great flying qualities, very easy to fly, very safe, has worldwide support. It's one of the most important things. It's not very readily visible about it. Of course, it's been sold now. Got support everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's just all around great airplane. Plenty of room, nice to fly. Can't be better.
Plenty of power.
Plenty of power. Any short field airport has to have airplane you can bet it's got plenty of power. Yeah. High power to weight ratio.
It was probably a pretty strong airplane too, even though that one recently they were using one for a forest firefighting and the wing came off, but that one, who knows what kind of maintenance it had on it. But
how did the wing come off? I don't remember that one.
It just went. It was a C-130 and it was.
Oh, it folded up. I remember the picture. It folded up that way. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was simply a tremendous vertical velocity gust from a fire.
Yeah.
You get some updrafts that are very strong, and of course downdrafts right by it, and a short interval between the two, up and down. Adjacent, when you run through that with an airplane, you can go from minus 10 Gs to plus 10 just like that, and that's what folded those wings. It got a tremendous single gust there. And of course that depends on the weight of the airplane at the moment. It was evidently loaded when it did that.
Right.
Too much for it. Yeah, there's another C-130 video that the Air Force had and you used to see sometimes, that an Air Force pilot landed down in a South American emergency little strip out in the boondocks somewhere. I don't know why he was landing there, but he was trying to land in there and he hit hard and the wings came down, and when the fuselage rebounded off the ground, came up, the wings went down, they came up again. When they came up, they went over the top and hit each other. And both outer panels fought just like that picture you remember. Both wings broke off at the inboard engines, and this fuselage with 2 engines on it. This video just shows it going out through there, and it just starts rolling about that fast. It went out there probably 1,000 feet before it came down and hit the ground again.
Wow.
A real bad accident, but neither of those cases shows the airplane wasn't strong. It was very strong. But of course, they're stronger airplanes. There's a lot of the strengths of airplanes is quite a range of operation. The FAA has standard for strength for commercial air carriers. For instance, has to be 2.5 Gs is all they have to be tested to, have to be designed to. Mm-hmm. Most military airplanes are designed to around 3.5 or 4. Some fighter airplanes, like the F-102, for instance, the Delta wing, is designed and stressed to 11 Gs.
Wow.
And so a lot of airplanes along that range, but it shows you there's quite a range of Gs. I remember when the B-52 coming out of someplace east of the Rockies, close to the base of the Rockies, they had a path from the field to the mountains and then turn north and then turn east again, climbing out. And one day in the summer, a B-52 took off and made this first turn. Just as it made the first turn, it crashed. And they couldn't figure out what went wrong. Everything was doing fine, no messages or anything. And finally, about a year later, another one did the same thing, only it didn't crash. And so they got the crew report that they'd hit a tremendous swirl. It turned out to be the mountain wave system on that side of the mountains was down, and it was hitting the ground right at that point where they turned and bounced up there, and they got in all this gusty, high velocity air, and I've forgotten how many G's they registered there, but a tremendous number. And what happened to the airplane was that the fin just broke off, and they had lost control. The airplane crashed, that first one. And so what the Air Force did then, the way they ultimately found out more about this, they called Wright-Patt and got a 102 in that had instrumentation for registering all this strain on the airplane, and went out there and flew through that same place in the same weather conditions, and they registered all the G's and figured out what was happening. And they changed the climb patterns for a lot of Air Force bases at that time to make sure they didn't go through those areas. The mountain wave is a very strong thing, and that fire case with the C-130 is just another case of the same thing, that nobody had anticipated exactly that there would be that kind of force in the fire, but there was. So you have to look ahead a little bit and learn from the past.